Hello. If you're able to, please close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Relax your shoulders. Unclench your jaw. Take another deep breath in and another breath out. You can open your eyes now. My name is David, and welcome to Mindful Moments. How are you today? I hope you're well. I am very well, thank you. You might be able to hear in my voice, or if you're watching, see on my face that I am smiling ear to ear because it is episode 60, the last episode of what I would unofficially call season 3. In my mind, unofficially, episodes 1 to 40 was season 1. Episodes 40 to 50 was season 2. This is season 3, episodes 50 to 60. So thank you so much for being here, however long you've been here. If it's your first episode, if you've already been here since episode 50, if you've been here since episode 1, I appreciate you all very, very much. If you've been here for a while, or if you've listened to the last few episodes, you will know that every 10th episode is a Q&A episode, and that is what today's episode is. It is episode 60, Q&A episode. I asked for people to leave questions on the YouTube video of episode 58, which a lot of people did. Thank you so much. I will answer questions that I picked from those questions. The questions I don't answer verbally in this episode, I'll do my best to get back to in writing on that YouTube video. So even if you don't hear an answer to your question for this episode, I will do my best to go back to all the comments and answer the questions in writing, if not in this episode. That's all the explanations. Wow, I'm impressed with how concisely I managed to do that. I thought I was going to talk for a lot longer. Without further ado, let's get into the questions. Question 1. Between work and university, I feel too busy to work on a passion project I've wanted to start for a long time. How do I make time for it? An excellent question, and one that I feel very well equipped to answer as somebody who studied in the traditional sense up until university, worked full-time, and then transitioned into a full-time creative career. When you have a passion project or something you want to work on, whether it's something you want to earn money from or not, when you have a passion project you want to work on and you're balancing that with other commitments that are more actively demanding of your time. For example, if you're studying, you'll have assignments and tests to study for. If you are working, you'll have demands at work that you actually have to fulfill because you're contractually obliged to do so. And your passion project always feels like it comes last because technically that's something that doesn't have to be done, but it's what feeds your soul to do. That's why it's your passion project. And eventually neglecting that over time leads to a decrease in well-being because feeling the things that we're passionate about is the most important thing. In order to find time for your passion project, and this is what I encountered in my final year of university, I was working 30 plus hours a week. I was studying, trying to finish my degree, and then I was also trying to do my creative career. And then in the first couple of years, when I was trying to create full-time or trying to create a life where I could create for a living, I was working full-time and balancing creating content consistently and doing those two things at the same time, as anyone who does it can tell you, is difficult. The first thing is to find or to be at peace with, the first thing is to be at peace with the fact that something is better than nothing when it comes to doing your passion project and trying to balance that with the other demands on your time. It's near impossible to do your passion project perfectly and do what you're passionate about perfectly when there are other big demands on your time and your attention. But because it's such a valuable thing to be doing, any work you put towards it is valuable work. I used to put off things to do with my creative passions and not do them because I would just tell myself, if I don't have the time to do it properly, I'm not going to do it at all. Really, the better approach is to do something where I can, because then every time I pick back up, I'm further along than the last time. Doing imperfectly gets me further along the path than not doing because I don't think the work I can do right now is good enough. That applies to many things, but especially when it comes to balancing passion projects with things that you have to do, it's important that we apply some level of realism. In the passion project, that's where the dreaming, and dreaming as big as possible without limits. That's where that comes in doing the passion project in the first place. But in finding the time and the space to do that, we have to do that in a realistic way. Place a lot of value on any time that you manage to get to do your passion project, and be kind to yourself over the work that you're doing towards your passion project in that time. Acknowledge it fully. Take into account the fact that I can't do this to the extent that I want to because of these other demands on my time. Therefore, what I am doing is so valuable and genuinely impressive because I could easily not be doing it. Give yourself credit for the work you're managing to do. Be realistic about the amount of time you have to do it in. And just make sure that you are doing something, because something is always better than nothing, even if that something doesn't look exactly as you'd like it to look. Question 2. I have been on a journey of gaining independence. How do I get the confidence to enter social events like a party alone? The fact that you're even trying to do this in the first place says that you're a more confident person than you might give yourself credit for, because it takes a level of confidence and audacity to tell yourself, do you know what? I'm going to work on actively becoming more confident. That's a really admirable thing. That's a very, very admirable thing to be doing. So you should be very pleased with yourself and proud of yourself for that alone. The biggest thing I feel to remember is that anything you feel in terms of nerves, self-consciousness, everybody else has felt before. And the people who are truly kind enough and compassionate enough that you would want them as friends and people around you will be so cognizant of that if you go to a party by yourself, for example, they're not looking at you and thinking, what's that person doing by themselves? It's either not crossing their mind, or they will assume that you have the confidence that you're searching for. Whenever I see someone who's by themselves, I always assume that it's either by choice, or if they wanted to talk to somebody, they would. And being quite a confident person myself, I will talk to them actively if I feel like they want a conversation. In addition to that, anybody who's by themselves and comes up to me to start a conversation, I'll just talk back. Anyone who's, as I said, someone who you want to be around, or the kind of person who is empathetic and compassionate enough to have as a friend or someone in your life, I would think if you went up to them and just started talking to them normally as a human to human, they just start talking back to you. I think that's one of the big things that we do to ourselves in our heads. We kind of build up this expectation around, or this assumption of other people that they're going to treat us in a certain way. But sometimes you need to give people the opportunity to act before you judge them. In fact, you have to let people do before you judge what they do. You can't preempt their reactions to how you are, how you're going to be, and then judge them based on that, because that judgment is false. It's made up. It's all in your head. It's hypothetical. So yes, keep doing what you're doing. Show up to those places, head held high, shoulders back, because you have every right to those spaces that everybody else does. And you will meet people who are empathetic, kind, lovely, and see you for you. Question 3. How do you move on from a mistake/action that you made that doesn't align with who you are? How do you learn to forgive yourself? That's a really big question. It brings to mind, there's a Kendrick Lamar lyric in his song Count Me Out, where he says, even my strong parts couldn't survive if I didn't learn to love myself, forgive myself 100 times. And that, when I heard that the first time, really, really resonated, because all of us, if we ever wish to be better, have to have some level of self-forgiveness. It's hard to feel like we are capable of, or have the right to practice that a lot of the time, because unfortunately, the fact of life is that a lot of the time, the mistakes that we make tend to hurt other people. There are mistakes that we make and no one's harmed by it, but sometimes the mistakes that we make harm other people. And when we feel like we've harmed other people, or know we've harmed other people, even when we apologize and do our best to make amends, it's very hard to let go of the guilt from doing so. Even more so when you feel like you've grown as a person, you've got to a place where I wouldn't do these things again. I wouldn't behave in that way again, because I know the consequences and I want to be better and I believe I am better. How can you definitively say or feel like I am a better person than that? Firstly, the feeling of guilt is a big indicator that you've grown from that kind of scenario, because if you didn't feel bad about it, it means you would do that kind of thing again. Whereas if you feel bad about it, you wouldn't. Guilt is a big motivator, and it's very important that we don't let guilt turn into self-pity. If guilt turns into self-pity, then we're almost not doing justice to the experience of having made a mistake. And we're liable to make more mistakes because we center ourselves in our wrongdoings rather than centering the parties or party who has been wronged. Yeah, if we let guilt turn this if we let guilt turn into self-pity, we center ourselves in our wrongdoings. And if we do that, we're not going to grow in the way that we should grow. Guilt is important as a vehicle to motivate us to do better. Then once we start doing better and we are better, it's our responsibility to then continue to do better and to forgive ourselves for making the mistakes that we made, especially if we know that they're mistakes we wouldn't make again. If you look back on a previous version of yourself and it makes you cringe or makes you slightly upset that you were ever a person who could do the things that that person was doing or that version of yourself was doing, that itself is evidence of growth. Even if there are times where that mistake comes back up, there's or the people or person that you've hurt in making those mistakes still feels wronged by that. Multiple things can exist at once. It's perfectly valid for someone else to hold on to mistakes that you've made. But the truth of the matter is, if you always hold on to those mistakes and use those to self-flagellate, you're never going to grow and be better. And you're more liable to make those mistakes again because you're not releasing yourself from that situation. Once you've apologized, once the amends have been made, as long as you hold space for, if you've wronged someone specifically, you have the responsibility to hold space for that to a certain extent. Generally, though, without forgiving ourselves, we can't ever be better. So there comes a point where what you are doing at present has to take on more importance than the mistakes you made in your past. We've all made mistakes. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to continue making mistakes. I'm sitting here now hoping that I never make another mistake in my life. Unfortunately, I'll probably be wrong, and I will. It's my responsibility, if that happens, to apologize, to make my amends, and to not continuously beat myself with that mistake, rather to continue to be better so that going forward from that mistake, I don't make the same kinds of mistakes and everybody who encounters me gets the best version of me. Question 4. Lately, I've been navigating a lot of change and trying to stay present and grateful while growing into who I want to become. You seem to carry a deep sense of gratitude and optimism so naturally. Has that always been the case, or is it something you've had to work on? What's helped you most in that journey? That's a very kind thing to say. Thank you. I feel like it's equal parts nature and nurture. It's as long as I've known myself or been conscious of, what kind of person I am, or people have told me what kind of person I am, I do believe I am quite naturally optimistic. And I think the biggest thing overall is that I'm very hardworking at anything that I tend to do. If I want to improve myself in any way, the responsibility is mine. And I believe responsibility to be a very positive thing. If you are responsible for something, it means you have something good worth taking care of and nurturing. Being responsible for becoming a better person, that to me is a responsibility we all have, and one that I am constantly taking on for myself. I always want to grow and to be better. Interestingly, though, one of the things I'd say that has helped me most in terms of growing into who I want to become is really understanding and being told the knowledge that I am not a constant work in progress. There are constantly things I'm working on because I live, the world around me lives, everything moves forward. Contentment, however, and being content in who I am is equally important if I'm ever to feel like I can continue the work of becoming a better person. If I never am able to sit down and have a checkpoint and say to myself, I'm really happy with who I am and where I am right now, that means that the work I'm doing is wasted because I'll never get to that point. It will just continuously be more and more and more and trying to make myself better and better and better whilst never acknowledging that I'm good enough. So knowing that I'm enough as I am, knowing that I have worth and value as I am is the foundation. That is the foundation for all the work. I'm good enough as I am. I matter as I am. I have worth. I have value. Therefore, all this work I'm doing on top of that is to maximize that value. It's not that I don't mean anything, so I have to earn value. It's that I have value, therefore I have the responsibility of maximizing that value and doing the best with what I've been given. Living in that knowledge, sitting in that knowledge is what makes it easy for me to, not easy, it takes work, but it's why I wake up every day with the determination to be optimistic, to see the best in things, to do the best with what I've been given, and to share the best of myself with others, knowing that I have value and being aware that I have value. And a lot of that is the reason why I do all of the things I do, my content, my book, my poetry, this podcast. I am really blessed enough to have the people around me who affirm regularly that I have value. I know for a fact that a lot of people don't have that around them. And a lot of the time when we don't have things that we need around us, we tend to find it in other places, in media, in music, in books, in TV shows, in podcasts. So it's my hope that sharing my experiences, sharing my perspective, and sharing that truth that you are valued and you are enough and you matter. And the new work you do on yourself is because you have value already and you deserve to maximize that value, not because you're not enough and you need to earn the value. Sharing that, you may not be hearing it from the people around you, but at least you might hear it from me. And I'm really hoping that you internalize that and take that forward with you in everything that you do. Question 5. What is your perspective on decision making? How do you know if a decision is right for you, especially when it comes to bigger life choices? Thanks for everything you shared, David. Love your podcast and book. Decision making. That's a hard one. That's a big one. My biggest philosophy when it comes to decision making is I have to know that my decisions are my own. No one lives the consequences of our decisions but us. That can be really difficult when multiple things could go right or wrong. It's a lot of responsibility, it's a lot of accountability. Having agency comes with responsibility and accountability. Like I just said in my answer to the previous question, responsibility is a good thing because it means you have something good worth taking care of. Having the responsibility for your own decisions can be a very daunting thing. When it comes to making big decisions, I try to focus on the fact that no matter the outcome, I'll be able to deal with it rather than worrying about whether I'm making the right decision too much. If a decision is difficult to make, it either means that both outcomes are as good as each other or both outcomes could be as difficult as each other. If a decision is easy to make, it means that one outcome is clearly better. But when the outcomes aren't as clear, it means that they could go well in either way or they could go badly in either way. And there's an element of risk involved. Everything has an element of risk involved. So for me, it's less about making the perfect decision. It's less about being able to go back and say, I picked the right thing every time. I'm going to make the wrong decision sometimes. I'm reserved to that. I'm not reserved, resigned. I'm resigned to that to an extent. I'm going to make the wrong decision sometimes. What I know for a fact is that every time I've been in this situation, I made it through this situation. There's not a situation that I haven't made it through. That's why I'm here talking to you. So when it comes to decision making, even the biggest decisions, by the time you've reached a point in life where you're in charge of your own decisions and you're in charge of your own big decisions, you have lived enough life experience to know what you want out of a situation. You are intelligent enough to think through what the potential consequences could be. And then the final part of that for me is knowing that you are strong enough to deal with whatever consequences there are. If the positive outcome comes from your decision, perfect. Nothing to deal with. In fact, everything to enjoy. Well done. Fantastic. If I make a decision and it leads to a situation that's less than desirable, less than ideal, I don't spend time beating myself up over the decision because the decision was made and I know why I did it in the first place. If I could go back, maybe I'd do it differently, but I can't. Also, like I said, I thought through the decision before I made it. It seemed to make sense then. It's a shame I was wrong, but I can be wrong. What I know for a fact is that I can make it through whatever situation arises from there, and that the experience will help me to make future decisions. Question 6. A person you love the most hurt you a lot. Some could say it is unforgivable. You want to forgive them though, but it's hard. How do you do that? What can help you? True forgiveness, for me, involves letting things go. And I don't believe you can truly let things go unless you process them properly. If you really want to truly forgive somebody, you have to process what's been done to you. That's what can feel slightly selfish, especially if it's someone who you love and care about and someone who you, from this question, it sounds like you want to forgive them. It's really hard to take the necessary time to process, especially if it feels like the decision is in your lap right now. The first thing I'd say is that anyone who rushes you to forgiveness probably isn't ready to receive that forgiveness yet. Because if you've wronged someone, you don't really have the right to make demands on them and to make demands on their healing. None of us really have the right to make demands on somebody's healing. It takes as long as it takes. So the first thing I'd say is process this as much as you need to. Communication is obviously very important as well. So if you are taking the time to process, communicate that you're processing it. I want to forgive you, but I need time. Again, anyone who would argue with that probably isn't ready to receive your forgiveness. So communicate how you're feeling and take the time that you need to forgive. There's no quick rush. There's no rush to healing. There's no quick route to processing the things we need to process and being in a place where we can, in this case, forgive or to do whatever we need to do once we've healed. But taking the time and communicating that you are taking the time and why you are taking the time is key if you're going to be able to be in a place where you can truly forgive. How do I know if I'm comparing myself too much with other people? There's a chapter in my book called Dealing with Comparison, which is one of my favorite chapters in the book, actually. And in it, I talked about how comparison is very useful at first because it lets us know what's possible. When we compare ourselves to other people, we see what other people are doing. We see, oh, wow, someone can do that. Maybe I could do that. Comparison is useful until it's not, though, because when you find yourself comparing yourself, when you find yourself comparing to an extent that it hinders your action, that's when you know it's probably gone too far. And that for me is the tipping point. If I can't act because I'm comparing myself too much, or if I'm looking with jealousy or envy at something that someone has or someone's doing because I'm comparing too much, those are the big indicators that comparison has gone too far. When those things happen, if I ever find myself thinking a negative thought about someone because I'm comparing us, I will immediately try to write down or think of or even say out loud something positive about that person because they don't deserve the negative energy that's coming from my personal insecurity. In addition to that, I will get up and act and do something for myself, for the betterment of myself, to counteract those negative voices that are making me compare myself to somebody else. If you are looking at other people with jealousy and envy, or if your own actions are hindered, you feel like you can't act because you're looking at what other people are doing too much, that's when you know comparison has gone too far. And in those cases, it's important to actively bring your mind back to a positive space and to thinking positive things about other people, because projection of insecurity is not a nice thing and could do harm to other people. And it's important to act, to prove ourselves wrong with actions. I feel like I can't act because I don't feel like I'm as good as that person at this. That means I need to do something to prove otherwise to myself or to work towards becoming the version of myself I want to be. It's never about other people, really, when we compare. It's always about us. So we need to bring things back to us and act in our own best interests. Question 8. Hello, David. Lovely episode as always. Thank you so much. Question. How do you get out of a rut? It's been a tough few months. I've been having trouble finding the momentum to get out of this low period. Felt, heard, and understood. This, for me, has been a year of ruts. I've found myself in a rut multiple times. At times, I've even questioned if I've got out properly. You know when things seem a little bit better for a minute and then they go back to what they were before and you think, was that just a false dawn? Did things not really improve in the way I thought they did? There's a chapter in my book called The Light is Around the Corner. It's in the winter section of my book. And in it, I talk about when you are going through really hard times, really difficult times, and how sometimes continuing doesn't feel like enough. It feels like you need more to lift you out of a rut. Sometimes, though, continuing is the only thing that you can do. And you're relying on something around you to change, to feel better and to feel different. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's all the questions. That's every question. Like I said, That wasn't every question I was asked. I'll do my best to get back to the others in writing, but I hope that's been a good episode. I hope those answers have been good. And thank you so much for asking the questions. Thank you for engaging as always. Episode 60. I'm taking a break from now. This episode comes out in the final week of July, July 28th, I believe. So from July 28th until, I don't know, for maybe a month or so, maybe a little bit longer. I'm afraid I can't give you a proper date, but that comes with the fact that I'm quite tired. I have a lot of things happening in the next few months. My book is coming out in the US on September the 23rd. If you are listening from there, please pre-order it. It would mean a huge amount. It makes a huge difference to me. I've just recorded my audiobook for Frequently Happy. So if you miss my voice in the intervening time, pre-order my audiobook. Just overall, though, I really want to say how grateful I am for you. I am so grateful for you. Every person who listens to this podcast, I can't tell you how I can't tell you how much it means. When I've met people in real life or come across people who listen, you've always been the loveliest. And I know for a fact that everybody who listens to this, the kind of people that you are, the kind of person that you are, that you would be so kind and thoughtful to me always, to give me the space to share my thoughts and experiences, to give me such positive feedback, and to show up week after week, to listen to these, to go back and listen to episodes again when you need them. It means so much. It makes it so easy for me to be consistent. It makes it so easy to want to do this. I want to come back to this all the time. Last year, when I took my extended break because of my health, and I didn't know whether I'd be strong enough or feel strong enough to come back to doing this consistently, the responses that I got and the way that everyone really held me and uplifted me, yeah, it made it a no-brainer to carry on doing this. And the strength that I have to do this consistently and to keep showing up comes from the fact that when I show up, you join me. I can't tell you how much it means. I appreciate you so deeply. We're taking a small break. I'll be back very, very soon. In the meantime, please take care of yourselves. Be good to yourselves. And thank you once again and always for being here. Thank you for listening. Whatever you're doing this week, I hope you have a wonderful one.